Good morning, Trumptopia. Welcome to another episode of News Breaking News with your host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. Hello and namaste, my friends and listeners. As always, my deepest and most sincere gratitude for your tuning in. Today is Tuesday, May 19th. It's 8:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and it is the 1,000,000th and a half day of Trumptopia. No, I've lost track. I think we're in the 1,000 something odd level of days under this unprecedented president. Today, the news media is shitting itself over a couple of things. Trump's very bizarre claim to have already been taking hydroxychloroquine for the last, quote, couple of weeks, and the shocking revelation that the U.S. military is working on a, quote, Super-Duper missile. No one really knows what that means, but from what I understand from some reporting, what do you call it? When the military was asked, not the military, but the Pentagon, that's it. When the Pentagon was asked for commentary about the Super-Duper missile, they referred reporters to the White House. And when the White House press secretary was asked about the Super-Duper missile, she referred everyone to the military. And it went back and forth like that with no real answers given. I don't know what to actually say about that other than it surprises the living shit out of me that Trump supporters are enthusiastic about this Space Force platform when most of them claim to belong to the conspiracy theory community, which denies that we've ever been to space. But then again, being able to hold two radically opposing things as truth while completely ignoring the contradictions is something that Donald Trump is really good at getting people to do. While Space Force is neat, and it's amazing that there's already a Netflix comedy show in development and or ready to almost come out soon, that alone is ridiculously hilarious. I'm exceptionally jealous of Steve Carell and company because the moment I heard about Space Force, the first thing I imagined was just a cartoon parody of the absurdity of it. One fun bit of news I caught when I typed in Space Force to the news app on my Apple iMac was an article from a news outlet called Metro that I don't know that I've ever heard of before, that claims in their headline, and I haven't read the article yet because I just found it moments ago, but they claim that one of the stars in this show about Space Force, the fabulous and always entertaining Lisa Kudrow, apparently did not realize that Space Force was a real thing. I can't blame her. It's one of those things that just, is beyond credulity. It's difficult to believe that that Trump wants to create a special agency to fight wars in space. Against whom? I don't know. The aliens? Perhaps. Oh, by the way, here in a just a weird memory flashback. I don't have anything in front of me of this to refer you as far as a link or whatever goes, but I seem to recall, and you'll forgive me if I'm erring here, if I'm making a mistake of memory, but I seem to recall an interview with President Trump on one of the many Fox News shows where he dangled the very elusive and appealing promise to declassify a bunch of information and reveal to the American public the truth about aliens. To the best of my knowledge, that very quickly got swept under the rug and never happened. The closest thing to it was something that indeed the alien enthusiasts in the conspiracy theory community jumped on right away, was the declassification of some video footage that had been leaked previously. All the declassification did was confirm that the footage really came from where the leaks claimed it did. The leakage, the confirmation, the declassification did not include any overt statements confirming nor denying any existence of aliens. But of course, the pro-alien enthusiasts ran with it as if it was concrete proof that the government was admitting that they had aliens in their possession. A bit of a stretch, in my humble opinion, especially after looking at one of those video segments. It is indecipherable garbage. It's just a blurry, weirdly shaped, amorphous blob in the middle of a blurry and very fuzzy gray screen, which you can't really tell what it is or is supposed to be. But I digress. The news is on fire today about the recent claim made by Donald Trump about his hydroxychloroquine prescription. And that's a stretch using that word. First things first, I wanted to run through my initial thoughts the moment I heard the news. Is he really taking it? That's my that was my initial knee-jerk response. He claimed that he's been taking hydroxychloroquine. Gonna edit that out in post. Trump claimed that he has been taking hydroxychloroquine for a couple of weeks now. But let's take a couple of steps back and review some known things. A, Donald J. Trump is a well-documented liar, to the extent that many people are very comfortable calling him a pathological liar. 18,000 confirmed false statements have been uttered by this man just since taking office. That is not taken into account the rest of his lifetime as a known bullshitter. Now, a lot of people who support Trump will say that those 18,000 confirmed false statements are just fake news. Now, I haven't had the chance to track down all 18,000, but trust me, I have been able to look at some of the things, and they're clear. Some of the statements on that list, and they're clearly false. And I've watched him make false statements that I knew from my own experience and knowledge were radically false statements, which then either got called out or tragically did not. So there's that, okay? We have a person who is known to, if not outright lie, embed minuscule and often irrelevant nuggets of truth in a load of horseshit in order to make the horseshit palatable. So that was my, right there with that very first, understanding of him, factual understanding of him. We must doubt his claim. Second, the drug has some gnarly side effects, and I looked them up, and of course I don't have them sitting in front of me. I should be able to find them in just a second here for you folks. But they've got the drug has some gnarly side effects, not the least of which is, interfering with your cardiovascular rhythms in a way that could lead to an arrhythmia and or heart attack. I know I screen captured. Where'd it go? I put it here somewhere. There it is. That's that folder. And we have it here. So, now, of course, I'll grant you, this is something that I found on the internet. And I'm the first person to question people who claim that they have all this evidence that they found on the internet. But I ran the search, and according to WebMD and drugs.com, hydroxychloroquine has the following common side effects: headache, dizziness, ringing in your ears, nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, loss of appetite, and weight loss. mood changes, feeling nervous or irritable, skin rash, itching, hair loss, paranoia, delusions, and there was something else that's not on here, but that I heard on the news just a little bit ago when I was scanning through different channels. So these are some pretty wicked, gnarly side effects, which may be part of the reasoning why the FDA and doctors across America are discouraging people from taking hydroxychloroquine. On top of that, let's just consider that at this time, the scientific community, the medical community, seems to generally agree, except for those who are fans of off-label prescribing, which is a whole issue unto itself that you can get pretty serious about if you wanted to. Like, the value and the trade-offs of off-label prescription can and should be debated thoroughly. But I don't want to get into that rabbit hole now. At least to say that, I'm not the kind of person that radically, that would in any shape or form want to risk or endanger my own well-being by experimentally taking a drug beyond its scope of design. On top of all of this, the next weirdest thing that happened within I think a couple of hours was that the White House doctor released an incredibly strangely worded press release in which the doctor does not confirm that the prescription was prescribed. Now, its wording the way it's worded seems to suggest that one could presume that it's an endorsement of the president's claim, while not actually going to the level of overtly confirming it. Obviously, the talking heads on the boob tube have a wide range of opinions, but it is really interesting to note that even Fox News, often comically labeled Trump News, by those who see the very curious and weird double feedback loop going on between Trump and some of the talking heads on Fox News itself has cast a great deal of doubt on the hydroxychloroquine claim and has gone out of their way, probably to cover their own asses, to indicate that the overwhelming consensus is that it should not be taken willy-nilly, and that despite there being doctors who are willing to use it off-label or off indicators, in this case as some sort of prophylactic to COVID-19, the current scientific community consensus is that it should not be used outside of a controlled medical setting for the purposes of investigatory analysis. In other words, yes, there are ongoing studies, but by all accounts, the majority consensus is that it should not be handed out as a miracle drug. So Trump does not appear to be exhibiting any of these known side effects. Although one snarky commentator, I think this was last night, I can't remember who it was, but I believe it was on MSNBC, very satirically pointed out that some of these symptomologies, the paranoia, the delusions or hallucinations, those might be symptoms that you could say Trump has been exhibiting for years. But it was funny, but also sort of nonsensical and mostly irrelevant. The point is, it is my humble opinion. I could be wrong, and I don't claim to have any proof one way or the other. but just based on having been a discerning observer of politics in general, of Trump ever since I first came across him on television many years ago, on the reality TV show Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, it seems likely to me, the confluence of evidence leads me to suspect that he's totally bullshitting the American people about taking hydroxychloroquine. The fact that his own staff in the meeting at which he made the disclosure seemed shocked and confused and possibly unaware of this situation only lends to the doubt. And of course, 18,000 plus confirmed false or severely misleading statements just since taking office. That's a lot of lies. Someone did some calculus about a year and a half back that for the amount of lies he had been fact-checked on at that point, he literally had to lie more than 5 times a day since getting into office. Now, I don't know. All politicians lie. And what are you going to do? Besides, try to hold them to account and not buy into their shenanigans. Now, Fox News is not just casting doubt on the hydroxychloroquine. They seem to be increasingly gently and subtly distancing themselves from Trump, at least laying the groundwork for some plausible deniability claim of being a Trump agitprop proxy, right? Like they're trying to make themselves live up to, they're trying to give themselves the appearance of living up to that fair and balanced label that they prescribe to themselves. So not only have they questioned and overtly sort of downplayed the validity of the claim that hydroxychloroquine is useful in a battle against COVID-19, they've also featured doctors who overtly say that they would not prescribe it to the general public, or should they be in the position to prescribe it and to be the president's doctor, they would not have prescribed it to him. They are also casting doubt openly on the infamous Obamagate, which, in all fairness, they had a great hand in bringing to popularity. But just in the last 48 hours, Fox has made sure to very strongly highlight the very curiously self-contradicting fact that, self-contradicting in that it's very questionable because, their whole movement is otherwise making lots of statements to the contrary of this. But Bill Barr himself recently made a statement that despite this ongoing investigation into the investigators and this ongoing investigation into Obama and Biden, there will be, according to Bill Barr, a very low likelihood of any criminal indictments being brought against either former politician. Fox News has also very subtly, very kind of politely, questioned the integrity of Trump firing yet another inspector general last Friday under the cover of Friday News dumps of all kinds of things. So that's an interesting move by Fox News. Now let's take a moment to step back. There's so much going on at once. Trump is not, as I said before, and I'll say again, he is not the kind of idiot that most people who dislike him wish he was. He's savvy enough to have gotten away with the kinds of scams and otherwise questionably morally questionable shenanigans that he has his entire professional life. And, Fox News themselves are a news agency that, is riddled with nonsense. And now, At no time will I pretend that any news agency is 100% pure and 100% righteous. But Fox News most certainly wants their viewers to believe that they and they alone are the only true righteous source of fact-based information, a claim that can be easily debunked. Trump himself, I don't know if he's parroting Fox News or if Fox News is parroting them. Trump would love his base to believe that he and he alone is the only righteous source of reliable facts. Again, a claim that is easily fact-checked and debunked. So, as we move forward into this umpteenth week of global pandemic and economic crisis, if anyone is to be held accountable for the way in which they represent or misrepresent the facts, it really should be those in charge, right? At any rate, I found it fascinating just how on fire the news is right now about this hydroxychloroquine. While there's plenty of people out there arguing that the drug has miraculously saved people's lives, there's also plenty of studies going on which have either resulted or seem to be coming to the conclusion, because many of them are still ongoing, right? I don't want to make claims that are untrue, but to the best of my understanding, of the studies that have rendered results, they've shown little to no evidence of it doing much of anything. The most optimistic results, from my understanding, indicate that it might facilitate or help shorten the duration of the disease if introduced early on. To the best of my understanding, none of the studies have indicated a verifiable prophylactic effect. In other words, a preventative blockage of the virus infecting people. And of course, there's the now infamous study conducted by the Veterans Hospital, or the VA, which they concluded that administering hydroxychloroquine to patients above a certain age group and anybody with other pre-existing conditions or underlying health concerns could cause a dangerous arrhythmia that might lead to a heart attack, and that it effectively, according to the VA study, caused more deaths than COVID-19 alone. In other words, COVID plus hydroxychloroquine equals a higher death rate, especially amongst older patients, than the disease by itself. And of course, something that I wanted to talk about last week and I didn't get around to, the most ridiculous thing that Trump has said about COVID-19, in some bizarre attempt to defend himself and his conduct so far, he literally said, if we didn't test, we would not have as many... No, I'm sorry. We would have very few cases. So if we did not test, we would have very few cases. Not only is that inaccurate, it's also incredibly misleading and technically false on its face. The number of infected individuals would remain the same objectively, right? But our awareness and our reporting of them in the statistical analysis of known cases is what changes, right? Like, if 100,000 people are sick and you only test 5,000 people, and of those 5,000 people you don't know who is sick and who isn't, you're going to get a low case number. Now, that does not mean that you, in effect, only have that number of cases. It just means you only found that many cases with that testing regime. The 100,000 cases total remains 100,000 cases total. Now, that's a purely theoretical statement, right? Like I was just saying, as a thought experiment. The absolute number, now, I hate that word, the actual number, the number of real cases out there will remain unknown. The fact of the matter is, no matter how many times Trump says that we have the best testing available in the world, that is incorrect. The number of people tested per capita still remains absurdly low, especially as we barrel into reopening. If we are truly to discern and understand this disease, we would need to test everyone multiple times, repeatedly. So there's a bunch of problems, both in the logistics and the way in which testing has been handled so far in the United States and, quite frankly, globally. And there's also a lot of problems with the way the optics of testing has been managed. The White House press secretary, whose name I still have yet to learn, I mean, I've seen it, I just haven't learned, I haven't let it stick in my head so I can say it without looking it up. Forgive me. It's no disrespect to her. I'm sure she's a lovely human being. But she's clearly, overtly willing to be a puppet mouthpiece for whatever Donald Trump wants to say or to be said. She dismissed the idea of testing everyone as absurd or ridiculous just a week and a half ago, I believe. Ironically, that was either just days before or days after it was made known that the president and the vice president get tested regularly. So, I mean, why would anyone do that except to cause confusion, muddy the waters, and enable conflict over the issue? It's offensive, right, to me, that Trump simultaneously promotes, quite erroneously, I think, the conspiracy theories that are flying around about COVID-19. He encourages people to doubt the scientists. He encourages people to doubt that it's real. He literally called the disease itself a hoax and then backstepped, sidestepped, shuffled things around and claimed he meant that the media coverage was just a hoax. He's simultaneously, why he's doing that while simultaneously receiving the most intense medical monitoring to keep him healthy. He's done a lot of things that don't make any sense if he's being sincere. They tend to make more sense if he's being a con artist that's peddling a lot of bullshit in order to cause confusion and enable conflict. For example, this whole hydroxychloroquine thing, back when he first initially started out of the blue promoting it, it was interesting that reporting from those early days seemed to indicate that his interest in hydroxychloroquine was inspired by someone in his circle, and forgive me, I don't have any of this information right in front of me, but I'm pulling this from memory, but that whoever had brought the suggestion to him had also managed, prior to informing him or encouraging him to promote hydroxychloroquine, had managed to acquire a boatload of it from Iran, of all places, from labs that do not meet FDA and other American medical institutional protocols. Now, I don't know about you, but that to me sounds like opportunistic profiteering in motion right there. I don't know whatever happened to that acquisition, but apparently, according to some people, that load of hydroxychloroquine was donated either to the stockpile or to medical institutions somewhere, so that people who wanted to use it could have access to it. It's astonishing the level of absurdity that we're getting to. But as we continue to move forward, and as we strive to kickstart the economy again, as we deal with the impacts and ramifications of the shutdown as it was managed here in the United States, we must stay vigilant and discerning. In my humble opinion, we should avoid getting into irrational debates based on political allegiances and unite under a serious investigation of the facts and hold accountable anyone who has misrepresented the facts or flat out lied to the American people. Now, that, of course, opens up the question, is all of this fake? Plenty of people out there believe, to this day, that coronavirus is either wholly unreal or some sort of tool being used by a conspiracy of evil men to butcher us all. Or just a ploy to take away our freedoms. Now, interestingly, though, and this is what I'll wrap up this episode of News Breaking News with, and I should have... So, no, maybe I don't. I thought I had written... Oh, here we go. No, that's a different thing. Sorry. Here we go. Sorry. So, what was I talking about? All right, COVID deniers have been shouting from their rooftops, virtually speaking, that in some way or another, this pandemic is not real. Now, I've already addressed the multitude, the unusual plethora of conspiracy theory content about what COVID-19, quote-unquote, really is, and the absurdity that in such a short amount of time, so many theories would come out competing with one another and driving an ongoing argument. Not just between those who think it's real and those who think it's fake, but even amongst those who think it's fake. Divide and conquer, my friends. But interestingly, also in the last 48 hours, we have seen the beginnings of people who previously claimed to be confident that it was fake, now sharing their survival stories of having gotten sick and gone to the hospital. One particular former COVID denier who posted public statements about it is named Brian Hitchens, and he's just one of a growing number of former COVID deniers that seem to be convinced at the onset of the pandemic that one of the many conspiracy theories about COVID-19 was absolutely true, and therefore COVID-19 must be false. And then subsequently got sick with COVID-19, hospitalized, and luckily for them, survived it. So this Brian Hitchens is one of several who are now recanting their denials in public video statements. So look that up, friends. I'm sure he's not the only one. I've heard of others prior to this. This is the first one where I saw a name and actual clip of video footage of him saying, I thought it was just the government manipulating us to take away our rights, and then I got sick. And here I am to tell you it's real, it sucks, and it hurts. I was paraphrasing his intent, not quoting him word for word. But go see for yourself, friends. All right. That's the news, breaking news. As always, friends, I humbly encourage you to remain vigilant, to truly actually think for yourselves, not just say, I'm thinking for myself as you regurgitate something that you've heard. I strongly believe that there is something deep going on here, and that the conspiracy theory content that we're all coping with, in other words, either getting sucked into or wrestling to stay away from, that it is, in fact, part of the overall agenda to propagate confusion, create lines of division, and keep us distracted with argumentation instead of uniting in the cosmic and universal calling for deep spiritual healing. As always, friends, I wish you well. I hope you are taking all of this with a grain of salt, taking appropriate precautions, but also not living in fear. Until next time, I have been your eccentric and humble host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo, and this has been my opinion talk show on how wacky the news is, news breaking news.